Rob, thanks a lot for being on the podcast today. I know that you are very busy with all the things that I have done and still doing for tattooing. You are the founder of the Electrum Tattoo Supply. You started back home.
Yeah.
And there is a quote here from an interview that you have given that when you started actually with the Electrum Prime, it was not your idea to supply so many people. Tell me a little bit why you started. What was the idea?
Well, originally it wasn't called Electrum. It was called Kryptonite. I don't know if you remember back that far, but it was called Kryptonite. I got sued by DC Comics, so the name got changed to Electrum. There's a whole story that goes through. I didn't know anything about copyright and intellectual property back then, you know. So I learned a hard lesson the hard way. But anyways, going back to the origin story, Electrum started when I was a working artist. I think the most stressful thing in my job as a tattoo artist was if I was doing a long session and I'd start losing my stencil. It was just very stressful to try to either freehand that design back in or try to build that from just a reference, you know, and it just never turned out quite right. And it really took away from the tattoo, I felt like. So I wanted to find a way to combat that problem that I was having just as an artist, you know. I was talking to other artists in the shop, and, you know, back then there was that old formula that Nico Hurtado used all the time where he just took that green speed stick and melted it down, mixed it up with some alcohol, and it worked really well, but it was problematic because it wasn't really a safe product. You know, deodorant has problems. There's a lot of stuff in deodorant that you really shouldn't be putting on people and injecting into people. So I wanted to find a solution that worked as well as that, but that was safe. So I kind of started going down this chemistry rabbit hole and just trying to educate myself on what made stencil products do what they did. At the time, I was using stencil stuff. It was really the only professional product on the market.
I remember that it was a speed stick or stencil stuff.
So that was my option, right? Speed stick or stencil stuff. And stencil stuff worked okay, but it wasn't a great product, in my opinion. So it was a product that was failing me a lot. And so I was like, well, I want to find a way to make this product better. So I really started researching the chemistry behind stencil products and also the chemistry in deodorants because I wanted to find out what the common denominator was. Like, why does this work so well? And why hasn't this science been applied to this product? And so once I figured that out, I basically came up with what you now know as Electrum. But it was like what you said, it was only for personal use. I only intended on making that for my own personal use just to make my job easier. I had no intention of making a product or a brand out of it. But I had a friend out in Oregon named Chris 51 that owned an ink company called Formula 51, if you remember back in the day, that ink brand. And I just sent some out to him because I wanted a second opinion. You know, it was working really well for me, so I sent it out to him and I said, hey, Chris, try this out, man. This is really a good thing, and let me know what you think. Well, he liked it so much that he was like, dude, you got to do something with this. Like, tattoo artists need this solution. Like, we need this. And so he helped me figure out how to scale that. And then he put me in touch with Lath at Killer Ink. And the rest was history after that, really. I always give credit to Lath and Killer Ink and the guys over there in Europe because they really put Electrum on the map. The first couple of years, we really just focused on the European market and the European artists over there. And Electrum really just took off.
It is crazy to think that actually you did the hardest way. No, you went to Europe, being based in the US.
Yeah.
And you started actually building up here and then moving back home.
I came over there, did some conventions, and we made friends with a ton of artists over there. I really love the European tattoo scene. I love a lot of the artists there. I love the conventions there. It's just a lot different than the US, you know, and it's a lot. The community in Europe is very different than the tattoo community here in the United States.
The grass is always greener on the other side. I think we have a lot of problems going on the tattoo scene here. Europe is going for a very hard time. Studios are not having a lot of clients. And if I think got to the US already, this recession.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely a thing here. It's the same. A lot of people aren't working. A lot of tattoo artists have gone and gotten jobs outside of tattooing because they're just not making money in tattooing right now. And a lot of shops have closed. All the supply companies are down. We're down 50% or so in sales this year. So it's a big shift and a big adjustment to make. You know, we're really on a different path now because of all of this.
After COVID, there was a boom from tattooing. I remember that as soon as COVID was over, we were booked out months in advance. It was crazy. And then came the whole thing with the Russia and Ukraine war. And since then has been a shit show. what people used to say. Now, towards the end of the year, towards the winter, I think now here for us has been a low year. It's not low season anymore.
Yeah, couple all that with what's going on in the economic political landscape here in the United States is just very tumultuous. I just feel like people on our level just feel very uncertain about the future. We just don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I think people are just really conserving their resources right now. They don't want to spend money frivolously or waste their money on luxury expenses, which unfortunately for us, tattooing is a
Oh,
luxury
yeah.
expense.
It makes sense.
People aren't just spending that money like they normally do. I think they're just really nervous about the price of living, cost of groceries, cost of rent, just everything is more expensive now. And nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow, in the world. There's wars going on everywhere. There's just political tension everywhere. It's just a very different world today than it was 15 years ago.
It is scary to see like everything that is going on around us. There is this meme on the internet. There is like the explosions everywhere, and a guy with a little sign, I have appointments free tomorrow. This sounds like the tattooist is in the actual situation in the world right now, you know?
It is. It's very sad to see.
With all of this uncertainty, you're still pushing Electrum and putting new products. You have the Electrum ink. What was your idea? We have a lot of brands out there, no? So why another one?
So I was on the fence about an ink company for several years. The thing is with me and Electrum, I don't just make products to make products. There's enough copycat products out there. I mean, we were just talking, back in 2012, stencil stuff was really the only professional product. Now there must be 100 different stencil products on the market. It's just crazy. But now they're just all copycats of one another. There's nothing unique about the product. It's just what's the best marketing or who's your buddy kind of a thing. You know what I mean? That's
Mm-hmm.
what really prompts people to use things now. And it's not really about the merits of the company or the product that drive people to choose a certain product. But I never really put too much serious thought into inks just because I'm friends with all the people that own the other ink companies. I've been in the trenches with these guys for
Mm-hmm.
a long time and I really didn't want to be competing in their space. I don't like the oversaturation of products, but at the same time, whenever I identify a problem or a way that a product can be improved, my brain just kind of starts working on solutions to those things. And so when I was a working artist, I always had problems with saturation of certain colors, and it didn't matter what ink brand I went to. It was like some companies had good yellows, some companies had good whites, some companies had good blues,
Mm-hmm.
but there wasn't really a company out there that just had a really good, strong, solid palette across the board with colors that function properly all across the whole range,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I was like, this has to be a solvable problem too, right? So same thing. I just start digging into the way tattoo ink works and the way it's formulated and how it's done. We've been doing this stuff for hundreds of years. So it's just kind of trying to perfect that.
I like a lot your approach with, I have a problem. I am going to find a solution. I
Right.
think I feel it a lot, in the community nowadays. There is people complain so much, but they do so little to actually try to change something. And it is really cool to see somebody say, well, I don't like it. I'm going to go and change something. If I'm not happy with it, I'm going to go and change.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, the target is just like, how can I make my life less stressful and how can I make my job as an artist easier? I'm not a person that puts up resistance to things like Procreate or like, hey, I'm glad I don't have to sit down and draw a tattoo all day anymore. I'm glad that time has been reduced so dramatically by technology and advances in technology
Hmm.
that now I have the ability to just pull some reference images off the internet, put them into Procreate, create a new design, and I can have a stencil within a couple of hours, send it to my client and say, hey, do you like this? Do you want, and if I got to make any changes, it's relatively simple to make changes. Whereas 10 years ago, you would basically
Mm.
be like, throw that design in the trash and start all the way over from scratch. And you've just wasted 6 hours on a drawing that a client doesn't like.
Technology is there, I think, to make it our life way easier. The example of the Procreate, you don't need to go and redraw, retrace everything to change a little detail here or there that your client doesn't like. Saves a shitloads of time.
Right. Same thing with
Yes.
AI. There's a big resistance against AI right
Yeah.
now. But to me, I'm like, I use the hell out of it because it just makes my life so much easier in so many ways. I'm grateful for it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I use a lot of Mid-Journey ChatGPT to give me ideas. I'm not necessarily gonna copy one to one, but I also have clients here that arrive with Pinterest designs, or even worse, pictures of tattoos
Yeah.
from somebody else, and ask,
Yeah.
like, oh, can you do this? I don't do this kind of stuff. So I see
Right.
the AI the same way. Somebody's gonna come and is gonna have an inspiration. I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna change. I'm gonna put my identity on the design, and I'm gonna tattoo.
Yeah. I've thought about this, because you can create custom GPTs on Chat GPT. I had created a custom GPT that I was going to integrate into the tattoo shop website where your client can come on and talk to the GPT and describe the tattoo that they want to get. And then basically Chat GPT will spit out an idea to them. And then they
Oh,
can
you
bring that
mean
into
like
the
do
shop.
design already to them?
And then they can bring that design into the shop to the artist and say, this is what I designed on your website. This is kind of what I'm thinking about. And then the artist can go from that reference point.
You see, yeah, this is making life way easier.
Right.
This AI you see nowadays, I think it's Sora, this new app that makes
Video.
the videos and all. It is crazy. You don't know anymore what's real and what is not.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Unfortunately, we as humans, we have the tendency to use everything for the evil, no?
Yep.
But yeah, I think tattooing can take a lot, or we can save a lot of time to do something else, to do other things that are more important in tattooing than actually keep changing the design every 5 minutes because the client's not happy.
Right. Right.
Spending time with important things. Tell me about TIMA. You are well known in the industry for pushing for higher standards in tattooing, try to come with regulations that make sense.
Hmm.
You talk a lot about that in your podcast, The Business of Tattooing. So tell me a little bit about the Tattoo Industry Manufacturers Alliance.
Okay. So that's a collaboration between Sean Brown and I. Sean Brown is the founder of Ever After Pigments. He also was the CEO for Nexus for a while, which is the company that owns Eternal Ink and a lot of other brands under their umbrella now. He's very educated in the regulatory landscape. He was around in the Coalition of Tattoo Safety that Mario Barth started back in 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Sean was an original member of CTS, so he's been up on Capitol Hill here in the United States lobbying against tattoo regulations. And really, CTS just kind of fell apart for a lot of reasons. Sean and I are really the only two people from that initiative that are still out here really holding on to the reins of what that group was trying to accomplish, right? So everybody else, for one reason or another, has kind of left that initiative. They just got burned out on the politics of it all. It's a very uphill battle. It's a very exhausting initiative to try to have a voice at the table with regulators and just really make sure that we can protect the integrity of tattooing and the history of tattooing, and making sure that laws aren't written by uneducated people that really don't understand the inner workings of our industry. There's a lot of things in the laws. They've written laws where they've used the term injectable. And when you use language like that, it opens the door for us to be really, really heavily regulated unnecessarily, because tattooing is not an injectable. We're not injecting things.
Yeah.
Injection kind of infers that you're putting a needle into a blood vessel and injecting something into a person, right? And that's not what tattooing is. It's very, very much more surface level
Yeah. It,
procedure.
it brings to a level of concern. You see nowadays, there is so many videos and so many experts talking bad about tattooing without having idea what they're talking about.
Right.
And a lot of because of misinformation. I think we have a lot of blame on that because we spend time arguing about what is good, what it's not, to use AI to do a design or not, when we should actually be taking the time to talk about more serious issues, gathering together the community, the difference between Europe and the US. I don't know, I feel the European community, although of course we have people that work together, they come together, I feel that it's becoming very scarce. The contact, it's almost nowadays, maybe because of the economic situation, people are kind of their own islands. There is this thing, oh, I'm not going to help you anymore. I'm actually going to try to get for me first. And if it's something left, then I might think about giving to you because I also need to think in the future.
Right.
And this is kind of destroying the opportunity that we have to take control of the situation, to do regulations.
Right.
Here in Europe, at least, is what I see.
Well, a lot of this stuff started with the REACH regulations in Europe. We see now how the tattoo industry's been negatively affected by the REACH regulations in Europe. It's going to be hard for European tattooers to come back from those regulations now because you have to try to somehow convince the government and the lawmakers to basically reverse some of the laws that they've written and some of the decisions that they've made. And that's not an easy thing to do, and it's not a cheap thing to do. So
Mm-hmm.
Sean and I wanted to be able to, fortunately, here there are lawmakers and there are regulators that are fans of tattooing. They are tattooed people. They just lack the education about how our business operates. So TIMA basically serves as the bridge between the tattoo industry and those regulatory people. And it's more or less of us extending an olive branch, allowing them access to us and allowing us to be able to educate them and work together to make sure that we do need regulations. We support regulations. We support oversight. We support good manufacturing practices. And we do believe that products that are on the market need to be safe and that they need to be made in ways that are safe for the tattoo artist and safe for the tattoo artist
Sure.
customer and clients, right?
Sure.
But we have a lot of that stuff out there that's not necessarily that right now, and it's damaging the tattoo industry. So we have to get control of those things. When you think of like ISO certifications or good manufacturing practices as a manufacturer, it's a very scary thing. It's very overwhelming. It's a lot of things that a lot of people aren't familiar with how to do or how to become compliant with those things. So TIMA and Inktegrity are basically there as resources for the manufacturers in the tattoo space so that you don't have to go out and try to hire outside consultants that really just want your money. They
Mm-hmm.
don't really have interest in the tattoo scene. They'll come in and they'll do things for you, but it's going to be really expensive and it's going to take you a long time. Whereas Sean and I have already done this work with our own companies. We know how to do all this stuff. So Sean and I are like, why don't we just put all our resources together, make these things available to the people that want to be members with us, and we all work together to become compliant in the industry, and we work with the regulators and the lawmakers to shape the future of tattooing in a way that's not so detrimental to tattooing and also serves what they need.
The Germans, they put a lot of worth in certificates. Now, they have here the ISO, the CE marking. They have very strict regulations, and they put a lot of value into a certificate. You have a certificate, so it's fine. The problem with these institutions, with the certifications, in my opinion at least, like misses the whole understanding, the whole comprehension of what is a tattoo procedure. What you just said about the injection. Like there are a lot of myths or a lot of prejudice behind tattooing that these people, they take together with them to work in these companies that at the end are the companies that are going to regulate, are going to say what it's okay, what it's not, what is legal, what it's not, what is safe, what it's not, without actually knowing enough about tattooing. And this is dangerous. This is misinformation and extremely dangerous. So in the US, you don't have these certifications. Am I understanding this right? Or you do have also something related like the ISO certificate or the C.
This is all under the new MOCRA regulations. So it's all undefined right now. It's like the FDA here now is basically coming in and saying, well, we've got to regulate this industry. We've got to take a look at what's going on in the tattoo space, just like Europe did with REACH.
Yeah.
We've got to say, so far, all they've said to us is that we have to have our facilities registered with the FDA. We have to have our products, anything that falls under the cosmetic guidelines has to be registered with the FDA. So right now, it's just really heavy scrutiny on tattoo inks. But after that, they're going to go into aftercare. They're going to go into all these other products, and they're going to say what should and should not be classified as a cosmetic. And then they're going to write laws based on those rulings to say what you have to have. Does this need to be manufactured in an ISO facility? all these things that we don't necessarily know yet.
Hmm.
We are encouraging manufacturers here to not wait for that hammer to drop, to just get as compliant as you can be, set up your ISO certification. It's better if the FDA comes and you have all of this stuff done,
Definitely.
So we're encouraging people that are serious about manufacturing safe products to get educated about the processes and what you need to be doing. Because like we just had a conversation, a couple weeks ago, we had the Alliance of Professional Tattooists annual meeting in New Orleans. One of the things we talked about was how this industry and the products in it are basically built by tattoo artists, right? Like most of the products that we use today.
Do you really think that is still like this? Do you really think that is still built by tattooists?
Up until a few years ago, yeah. I think a lot of the products that are out there in the space are tattoo created products. Now, you have a lot of corporate influence now, and you have a lot of
Yeah.
Chinese products in the space now, too. This is where I'm thankful for regulations, because I think regulations are going to weed out a lot of that stuff. Going to get rid of a lot of those bullshit products that I call, it's like, why do we have 100 stencil products? Why do we have 500 different aftercare products? It's too much, it's like, and
Hmm.
too much renegade products. Lidocaine is a big problem here in the United States, these numbing products, and they're really under heavy scrutiny because they're causing a lot of problems, because there's a lot of companies out there that are putting products out on the market that have dangerous levels of lidocaine in them.
Talking about numbing products, the first thing that crossed my mind is people going under
Yeah.
to get tattooed. You see, not that long ago, made the news worldwide, this guy in Brazil that died.
Yep.
And it was not the first case. And yeah, I think the industry after COVID really exploded. It was good for everybody, but it got to a point that literally became an industry attracting a lot of people that have nothing to do with tattooing into
Right.
tattooing, that's only wants to make a buck
Yep.
and are not caring enough about, well, yeah, anything else, just the money.
Yeah, so we
Maybe.
want to get those people out of here. They're damaging our industry more than they're helping it. And so we've got to clear that path, you know. That's the tricky part about TIMA. I don't ever want TIMA to be seen like tattoo police, you know what I mean? But in a way,
Mm,
it's kind of one of those catch 22s where you kind of got to have that, We want to set up a certification program inside of Inktegrity, basically. It's kind of like your CE certificate over there in
mhm.
Europe. If you go through this Inktegrity certification process, then it means your product's been vetted, your facility's been vetted. We know that this is a safe product, and we're good with it out here.
I'm gonna have a shitstorm coming my direction now because of what I'm gonna say, but it is true. Here in Germany, we have as good as nothing, any kind of regulation to open a tattoo studio. And you have the health administrations from the cities, from the neighborhoods that they go to control, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the problem is that they are so overloaded. They control the whole gastronomy, static clinics, all of that. So what happens after years? They haven't come to see if the studio actually has everything and works the way that needs to work to be a safe environment to get tattooed.
Right.
Spain, I think it is a good model for Europe. Other countries should take this as an example. They started taking companies, private companies, to do that. You have a private company that comes to the studio. They're going to control everything, see if you have hand sanitizer, if you have an area specific for tattooing where there's no plants, pets, whatever the hell, like it is the way that needs to be. Then they put a sticker on the vitrine of the studio, and it makes way easier because when the health authorities are walking by here, they see already, cool, this tattoo studio here is for the next, I don't know, 1 year, 2 years. It is
Right.
already done.
We joke all the time here that it's harder to cut hair than it is to do tattoos legally here.
He is the same. He is the same. You have, like in Germany, you have this Ausbildung. Now, Ausbildung is like a training, a course that you need to do to have a certificate. For you to be a hairdresser, you need to have one, and
Yeah.
it's 2.5 years.
Right.
For
Now,
tattoo,
is cutting hair a more delicate process than tattooing someone?
for what it seems, definitely. I mean, come on. If somebody fucks up my hair, I'm gonna look horrible. It's not like the hair's not gonna grow again.
Right. You
You
can
know,
fix it.
it
Yeah,
is
it's just
messed
really
up. It
backwards,
really
you know?
messed
So
up.
like our goal is to be able to get Inktegrity recognized by the FDA as a partner, basically, you know, because wouldn't it be better for you as a manufacturer or as a tattoo shop owner to have a representative from inside the industry come to your place, work with you to make sure that when the Board of Health or when the regulatory people actually come in, that you're going to pass with flying colors because you've already had a representative from the industry that understands the regulations and the laws basically take your hand and say, here's what you need to fix. You need to get this right, and this looks good. And then they give you this report, and you fix all these things, and you're done. You're compliant. And then when the regulators come in, you don't have any problems. Whereas the opposite side of that is the regulators come in, they give you all these red marks, and then you're dealing with a whole different ball game that you don't want to be
Mm.
playing.
Yeah, of course, it's way better. Also, I think to hear from somebody that knows about what they're talking, it makes easier to have the criticism, to hear what you need to change. If somebody that knows about tattooing is going to come into the studio here, it's way easier to relate to what they're saying and
Right.
change. It's not anymore, oh, this is this dude in this uniform coming in here and trying to shit orders on my face. It's somebody that I know that have the knowledge. Our industry or our craft, we are a very specific kind of people. We don't
Yeah.
like anybody telling us what to do
Right.
if they don't know. It is a
Yeah,
complicated
yeah, we talk
situation.
about it a lot. I would encourage anybody that's listening to this podcast to go check out episode 28 of the Business of Tattooing called TIMA Talks. That's where Sean Brown and I sat down and we really just laid out what team is all about and just really introduce that to the tattoo community. If you really want to know what team is about, check that episode out. We talked a lot about it. And
I'm going to put the link here. I think there you say a lot of things that are extremely important also for the people here in Europe. Would be great for them to hear. So guys, check it out. I'm going to put the link here for the last episode. It's definitely a must hear. Moving a little bit further from Tima, what is your personal goals with tattooing?
safety has always been the most important thing to me in tattooing, you know, just credibility and safety. Getting into product development myself really opened my eyes to a lot of things and, you know, getting out into the world and seeing tattooing in a lot of different places and just having exposure to so many different products and the people that make the products and really understanding the science behind products and all the things that our industry is lacking from a safety standpoint. I'll never put people on the spot, but you know, I've been into a lot of shops that are not really what I would consider the gold standard of what we want our industry to be represented as. So like I just want to be an educator. You know, I want to elevate this industry through education, just helping tattoo artists get better at their jobs, bridging that gap between the tattoo artist and the regulations because those are here. They're not going to go anywhere, and our industry is going to continue to be challenged by them. So, you know, being favorable to those things and trying to work in conjunction with those things in a way that's beneficial for us instead of detrimental is really my key focus. I'm trying to step more back from my day-to-day business. I've brought more people into the company to handle things that I would normally be doing so that I have more time to focus on my podcast, which is an educational platform
Mm.
so that I can focus on TIMA and integrity and initiatives with Sean Brown and the things we're working on with that. We've got a lot of really good people involved in that, some really smart people that are outside the industry in universities, scientists, college professors, just really, really smart people that are part of this initiative, that believe in this initiative that we're doing. And it's a really exciting time for us. It can be very overwhelming and scary to think about all the work that has to be done. But there's so many people involved that I just feel like it's a very good thing. And I just think that's the future, you know? So I just want to be able to elevate the industry and pass the torch to people that want to carry the weight of that, you know?
There is a shift in the whole tattoo scene. Do you think that the tattooists are more aware of the responsibilities of the craft? Or do you think that this shift happened actually towards a bad direction?
In regards to what specifically?
You said there are studios that they are far away from having hygiene standards or being the way that it is safe for tattooing. We have now social media, we have multiple channels to actually learn and try to be better. Do you think that these shifts that have happened or that is happening in tattooing also influenced by all the content that we have available on YouTube, on Instagram. Do you think that it was a shift for good or a shift for bad? And why?
Well, I think social media has definitely been a shift for bad for our industry because it's just basically opened the floodgates and allowed anybody to come in and pick up a tattoo machine and think they can start doing tattoos in 2 days without knowing anything about the business or the application of tattoos. They're scratching on people and trying to figure shit out on their own. And that will come to an end. I think that's going to come to an end rather quickly. You know, we're in a weird place. It's like there's a lot of people that want to come into this space because they think they can make a lot of money here relatively easily. And they're taking shortcuts. You know, they're not getting proper education. They're not getting proper apprenticeships. They're just going on YouTube, which I'm not going to say that's not an okay way to learn. I mean, there's a lot of good information out there. If you want to take the time to absorb hours and hours of videos and learning things the right way, there's a lot of very highly skilled tattoo artists out there with content on YouTube teaching people the right ways to do things. But are people choosing to use those videos, or are they just, I don't know what people are using. I think it's very hit and miss. You know, I think a consumer that's getting tattooed today really needs to do their homework and make sure that the person that's tattooing them is very well versed in the craft and knows what they're doing. And I think it's pretty easy to tell when they're not. But I think part of TIMA and Integrity also in the APT is about strengthening those points of entry, like we were talking. It's harder to cut hair than it is to become a tattoo artist. And we need to change that. We need to strengthen the gates and make the point of entry a little more difficult. And there needs to be a certification process to be a tattoo artist.
You used the word already, gate. So when you say strengthen the gates and making the process more difficult, we're going to come to the gatekeeping. Now, what do you mean by that? You want to make harder, or you want to create a process where we can control the quality and if the person can come in or out?
All these other industries, whether it's hair or cannabis or drugs or food, all these industries regulate themselves. You know, they have processes that you have to go through. Like you said, you have to go through a process that takes 2 years to own a salon and cut people's hair. We don't have that in tattooing necessarily. Some places do, some places don't. Here, for example, where I'm at, the guy that mows my yard could go open up a tattoo shop tomorrow. Nobody's going to check whether he knows how to tattoo. He's going to go rent a building, put a sign out front, and start tattooing on people. But it can't be that easy going forward. We have to stop that from happening. We have to actually make sure that people in this space are actually qualified, are educated on hygiene standards, bloodborne pathogens, all of this stuff, and actually how to apply a tattoo properly, how to use the equipment properly. The whole A to Z of tattooing. They need to know all that before they actually start tattooing on people.
What do you think about control? Who is buying and who is not? Because at least here, what the government requires from you to be a professional tattooist is for you to pay the taxes. So register as either a freelancer, a small business, but either way, if you go there at the tattoo supply, you can buy pretty much everything. They don't require any documents from you to prove that you are actually a professional tattooist. They simply sell.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to benefit us to get that far in the weeds on all of that because it's kind of an uncontrollable thing, you know, because like Amazon, it's going to take a lot of work to try to control those kind of outlets, right? But what we can do is educate the public, the tattoo consumer, on only going to certified tattoo artists to get tattooed. If we do a good job of educating the public, it doesn't matter if those guys go out and buy machines, because if an educated client comes into their shop and they don't have the certifications, they're going to turn around and walk out and they're not going to get tattooed by that person. So by default, those people won't be in the business that long because they just won't be able to get enough clients to sustain. Does that make sense?
I think this is a very good perspective on the education side. Everybody that I had here on the podcast, when we talk about the school, we talk about like how to teach people the proper way of learning how to tattoo. To make it right is a long process because the whole content needs to go to the Ministry of Education. This needs then to be analyzed. And then again, you need to have somebody from tattoo inside of the Ministry of Education to make sense of the content that they're going to suggest. Now, so it's a very complicated process. But yeah, we have the clients that are the biggest consumers from tattoo. and teaching them how to see now what it's a good tattooist, what is a bad tattooist. He knows what he's doing is definitely a great perspective, is a great way to approach.
Right. And let me just say this too, because I can already see that there could be some negative sentiments around some of the things that I say. So, like, I just want to clarify that I'm not in here trying to make money off of any of this, right? Like, I have no financial angle in this, is what I'm saying. So, like, I don't want to own a tattoo school. I don't want to teach people how to tattoo. That's not part of my future outlook. So,
Mm.
let me just put that out there. But I am interested in making sure that our craft is protected and that it's only filled with people that are really passionate about tattooing and that are in the craft for the right reasons.
It needs to be some kind of education. And I don't see being an online education or like buying books and reading by yourself, because it's a practical craft. So you need to have somebody there, people that are going to teach you and all of that. What I see is that we need to find a way. And I see a lot of actually amazing people, not just good tattooists, but people that know, and they know also how to give away, because being good at something doesn't mean that you're a good teacher.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I see a lot of good people, they don't want to get involved. And it is, for me, my opinion, maybe because the industry or the craft, the other tattooists, they had this stigma against tattoo education in the sorts, a shame, because if you have great people get involved into tattoo education, you wouldn't let the space for these 2 year tattooists having apprentices and teaching, because they see the demand. People want to learn. Nobody that actually can teach is teaching. So I'm going to jump in the gap and make some extra buck.
I don't really know what the future of that all looks like. There's so many different directions that could go. The education process, I would assume there's going to have to be a validation process for those educators too. Just can't,
This
not
also
just
should be, yeah.
anybody can hand out a certificate to be a tattoo artist. Not just anybody can go open up a tattoo school and start teaching people, because let's be honest, there's a lot of tattoo schools out there that aren't really tattoo schools. They're not really teaching people anything. They're just getting money from people that don't know any better, and they're not really educating them properly. They're just, it's a scam, more or less.
Definitely. If you have also any other kind of school, primary school, secondary school, whatever, you need to learn how to be a teacher.
Yeah.
It makes all the sense that this is also going to be controlled. Yeah, it is a big topic. Unfortunately, I don't think that is going to change in the near future.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about it. The people that I'm surrounding myself with and that I'm hanging out with today are all people in the industry, for the most part, that are very passionate about the industry, that have been in the industry for a long time, and that really care about the longevity and the future of the industry. And a lot of those people, that particular area is where they are passionate about the education and so they're working on those things. I'm fortunate that this all works out in our favor eventually. It becomes a lot better. I just think it takes a lot of work to get there. But it doesn't come without controversy. It doesn't come without lots of back and forth and a lot of heated conversations and a lot of
Hmm.
debate. But I think ultimately the passion is in the right place. And I think the right people that care are aligned with the right people that care. And as long as there's enough of those people that care, then things will start to get across the finish line and differences will start to be made and things will improve.
I am a little impatient with this topic simply because I have strong feelings about seeing the tattooing scene being dragged in the mud the way that it is. There are tattoo styles that shouldn't be there. There are tattoo techniques that it's not having any technique at all. I think that it's still, unfortunately, a lot of a room to go darker
Yeah.
before it's going to start to get better.
We have an opportunity right now to make sure that that doesn't happen, right? So that's why I always encourage, and even you should come on board with us on TIMA and Inktegrity and just join forces with us. We need the people that care the most to be here, to be part of the conversations and to help and shape what the future of our industry looks like, because we fully intend to be the people at the front line really trying to lead the charge and making those changes.
I came up with the idea of the podcast because there are a lot of great people out there with great ideas, with, as you said, the heart in the right place. And they unfortunately don't have the voice. Technology is not bad, and I think that we should use throughout all the possible ways that we have to spread the word, try to make things like this, institutions like TIMA, everywhere, not
Yeah.
just in the US, not just in Germany, but really everywhere, because the tattoo community really needs to unify. We can use this globalization to actually make something amazing again of tattooing.
Yeah, there's power in numbers, right? So I'll tell you something interesting that was very eye-opening for me. I don't know if you've heard of AFDO, which is the Association of Food and Drug Officials here in the United States. Been around for 100 plus years. And AFDO is actually the organization that the FDA was formed from, right?
Uh-huh.
So this is this big, they just had this big annual thing in Dallas, Texas. I can't remember exactly what the dates were, but I went to that. Sean Brown was there. They have a body art committee part of that. So the body art committee's been part of AFDO for 13 years now. And so this year was the first year I went to that. But it was very telling to me because there are 1,000 people from the food and drug industry at this annual event in this hotel. And it's a week-long conference. It's like they have these breakout rooms and they have these conversations about what's happening in their respective spaces. The body art committee was only represented by about 20 people. After being part of AFDO for 13 years, there was only about 20 people there representing our industry, right? That to me was very alarming. Like, I'm like, wow, we've been here for 13 years and this is the only people that showed up to represent us. Like, we've got to change that. And that's really, a lot of those instances are really what sparked the fire to start TIMA and Inktegrity, and realizing that we're lacking that representation and those numbers in our industry, and really trying to get an initiative together that's going to build that platform and build that membership base so that we have the voice to go to the table with the regulators and have real conversations about laws that are going to shape our future, because they're going to come just like they did in Europe with REACH. How much input did the European tattoo community have on the REACH regulations? None.
Exactly. You are telling people there to not wait actually for the storm to come, to prepare already. And here, people took way too long complaining about the reach. They tried to fight, but way too late. I honestly don't understand how this happened, how it was allowed to happen here in Europe. Back then, when the red flag came from France, people should have united, seeing this coming to Europe. People should have come together to say, no, wait, let's get ahead of it. Regulations that would have come from us.
Right. And I'm very sympathetic to what happened in Europe. I think it's a tragic thing what's happened in Europe with tattoo laws under the REACH regulations and specific to tattoo pigments, because I know the REACH pigments are not any good. It's just not a good thing. So
Yeah.
we don't want that same thing to happen here. So we have to look at what happened in Europe. It's not that we can't change those things. I think we can. It's not too late for Europe. We don't have to shut the door on that. There's still hope to change those laws. We can get that reversed. We can work
Yeah,
to
but
change those things.
it's way harder every year that the law is there. It gets harder and harder.
Exactly.
And
We have the opportunity still to do that in the United States. Canada hasn't done anything yet. Australia hasn't done anything yet. These other places, they're just kind of sitting back waiting to see what's going to happen in the United States. We know what happened in Europe. What's going to happen in the United States? Now is the time. We can't make the same mistake and not come together here. We got to work here to set the precedents for the future, because we want to make sure that the same thing doesn't happen here. And then we want to make sure that doesn't trickle into the other areas of the world, Canada, Australia,
but you
everywhere
see,
else.
this is exactly what I'm talking about. We have a tendency to not caring much about what is going on around us. Here, again, the feeling that I have is every tattooist is their own island. Every studio is their own island. I miss this fraternization. People go to conventions nowadays. It is to compete against themselves. It's
Right,
not to make contacts. It's not to make network.
right.
To see the guy as somebody that is trying to get the prize away from you instead of exchange knowledge. Let's grow together. I miss a lot of this in the tattoo business.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we want to do with TIMA and Inktegrity. Like I was talking when we went to the AFDO thing and there were 20 people there from the tattoo industry. The rest of the people were drug people, food people, cannabis people, whatever. But all I could sit here and think was like, wow, how incredible would it be if this room was filled with tattoo industry people right now, and we were just talking about what happened in the world of tattooing this year, and we handed out awards to people and we recognized people's contributions to the industry, because that's what they were doing. They were handing out awards to people
Mm-hmm.
that were safety people in the industry. This person's our safety champion of the year. Well, here's a big award for them and a applause. And that's great. Nobody's there trying to sell products to each other. It's just a big networking opportunity. It's come meet the people that make your products, come network with other artists. That's what we want to try to do with TIMA and Inktegrity eventually. But we got to get all the people that are passionate about this in the same place, tuned into the same messages and conversations.
Yeah. Passion is missing in tattooing, and the people that still have passion in tattooing definitely should
Yeah.
come together to ignite the fire a little bit more.
So that's my future, my friend. 100% committed to it.
My last question, what excites you about tattooing still after all these years?
It's just simply art. I'm an artist at heart, and I've been an artist at heart my whole life. So that's what I get excited and passionate about. I just started my spotlight series on my podcast. So that's where I'm just going around to shops. Like I'm actually taking the podcast into the tattoo shops and interviewing the artists that I want to talk to in their shop. And then we get outside the shops a little bit. I was there Tuesday in Indianapolis at a tattoo shop with a friend of mine. And we did the interview in the shop. We did a tour of the shop, got it all on camera. And then after that, I said, hey, I really want to dive into what are you passionate about? Like, what do you do outside the tattoo shop? He's a graffiti artist. So we went somewhere in town where they tagged this whole place up and we did a spot over there and we just checked
Oh,
out all
nice.
this graffiti, and it was just super cool. You know what I mean? It's just cool to be immersed in art all the time. And that's what keeps me engaged. Tattooing itself is such a unique art form that it never gets old because you're always seeing incredible tattoos. Every tattoo's different. So it's like you're always looking at something new. There's always a new artist that comes into the scene that just blows your mind. And you're just like, wow, I never saw this before. Somebody's always pushing the envelope and trying to do new things and create new styles and mash up styles. It's a really unique form that you have so much freedom and flexibility in that it's hard not to be in love with it as an artist.
I can see the spark in your eyes. It's really nice to be in touch with people like this, because not even just tattooing, not even just art, like whatever you do, if you are passionate about it, if you do it like you feel what you're doing, and you don't do it for the money, you simply do it because it feels right for you. It is the best way for you to actually be successful. And success is very personal. No, everybody has their own way of success, their concept of success, and it's definitely not the likes and
Right.
the views on social media.
Yeah. 100%.
Man, thanks very much for the talk. It was really cool
Yeah.
to talk to you.
I really appreciate the time and thanks for reaching out to me. And it was great talking to you. And yeah, good luck. I love what you're doing.
I'm going to tag here the website from TIMA, the podcast. And again, thanks a lot, man.
Thank you so much, man. Have a great one. I'll see you soon.
You too. Bye bye. Take care.